It's okay. I'm good. Let's go!
Hello everyone. Today we will be briefly looking at the world economy. There are many countries in the world and a good amount of them are quite small in terms of their population, the land area and other economic characteristics that you may have never heard of in your life. What we are doing are focusing on some of the most important countries.
Hold on, what do we mean by important?
Well, for this we will assume that these are large countries.
Wait a minute. Large countries? What do you mean by large countries?
I see. Let me first explain the land area and population of the world. Land area is the total area minus the area of lakes and rivers. This table represents 20 of the largest countries. We can see that Russia is the largest country in the world in terms of land area, with 12.6% of the world's total land area, even after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, with over 16 million square kilometres. China then follows as the world's second largest country at 7.2%. There are no surprises that countries like USA, Canada and Brazil then follow after China in the rankings. Conversely, Kazakhstan, who was part of the Soviet Union, is ranked 9th. Altogether, these top 20 countries account for 68.5% of the world's total land area. The bar chart clearly shows the differences in land area sizes between the countries. We know that country land area is of limited use because of deserts, rocky, swampy or frozen area, of which is uninhabitable land that cannot sustain and feed the population. Therefore, the population would be a better indicator of a country's fertility and potential economic capability. Here is a list of the top 20 countries in terms of population, of which only 8 of the countries that were in the top 20 land area are present. 2 of the Asian countries, China and India, obviously stand out here, accounting for 2.3 billion people. That's almost 37% of the world's population at 6.8 billion. USA, who ranked 3rd in land area, is also ranked 3rd in population, has almost 27% of India's population. In the list, there are a number of Asian countries besides China and India. There is Pakistan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Japan, Philippines, Vietnam, Turkey and Thailand. These top 20 countries account for 71% of the world's population. The bar chart clearly shows the differences in population sizes between the countries. We shall now look at a visualization which shows the population and land area for every country in the world. The darker the colour of the bubble, the higher the population of the country. The bigger the bubble, the greater the land area of the country. As we can see, Russia has the greatest land area, hence the largest bubble, but quite a low population in comparison to China and India, who clearly have the highest population sizes with very dark coloured bubbles. It is surprising India has such a high population given the size of its land area. The USA, Canada and Brazil are all shown to have very similar land areas but varying population sizes as their bubble colours differ.
Okay, thank you John. Now we'll be looking at gross domestic product and purchasing power parity. One of the best indicators of economic power of a country is by obtaining the estimate of the total value of goods and services produced in a certain period. So therefore, we will be comparing the gross domestic product between the world's top 20 countries. GDP is the market value of goods and services produced by the labor and property in a country. Now, let us look at the 2008 GDP data of the top 20 countries. This table shows the gross domestic product ranked by purchasing power parity for 2008 in current US dollars in billions. The value of output on the basis of observed exchange rate tends to underestimate the value of production in the non-tradable sectors in low-income countries like Indonesia and China, in comparison to high-income countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. For example, having my shoes cleaned in the US by John will cost me more than having them cleaned by Tom in India. So to correct this, purchasing power parity is used. As estimates and assumptions have to be made, the results produced by different organizations for the same country tends to differ, sometimes substantially. Purchasing power parity figures are estimates rather than hard facts and should be used with caution. We can see that the United States is the largest economy with over 14 billion in gross domestic product purchasing power parity, about 20% of the world, followed by China, Japan, and India. In comparison to nominal GDP, the estimated value of production in GDP purchasing power parity is much higher in China, who ranked second, which seems to almost doubled, and for India, which looks like it more than doubled. There are a few countries where nominal GDP and purchasing power parity GDP are close in figures. Here we can see Japan, who ranked third, one of the countries that did not appear in the top 20 population or land area, was said to have experienced rapid growth for 3 decades, which was referred to as the Japanese post-war economic miracle.
Thanks very much, Kareem. Another good indicator of the economic power will be looking at international trade.
Looking at international trade for the top 20 countries in 2008, we can see who the largest trading nations are. We have split them into imports and exports in current US dollars in billions. And as you can see, the United States is the largest for both importing and exporting, followed by Germany and China. Saudi Arabia is the only country that appears in the top 20 exporters and not in the top 20 importers, ranking 29th. And this is mainly due to their high exportation of oil. Poland is one of the only countries that appears on importers' top 20 and not in the exporters, where it was ranked 26th. This is due to most Polish imports being energy and capital goods needed for industrial retooling and for manufacturing inputs rather than consumption goods, and their exports being cars, machinery, furniture and iron steel products.
Thank you, Tom. Finally, we shall now incorporate all of the previous discussed information during the period 1980 to 2009 into a moving chart visualization. Let's see what happens during the past 3 decades, shall we?
We are now on to the moving chart visualization. This visualization will observe exports on the y-axis and GDP on the x-axis. The size of the bubble represents each country's population, and each country is represented by a different color. We will pay particular attention to the US in red, China in blue, India in green. Before we begin, we can see that majority of the countries are focused more in this location. This is showing that in 1980 they all had relatively similar GDP compared to exports. However, the United States show a higher GDP in relation to exports. We will now be looking at this data over the time period 1980 to 2009. As we can see that all of the countries began to grow slowly compared to the United States, while China begins to pick up more in 1981. In 1986, the United States began to pick up more in exports while continuing to grow in GDP. Japan, Germany, and the United Kingdom sees an increase in both exports and GDP. In 2001, you can see a decrease in the United States exports. This is mainly due to the World Trade Center disaster. In 2002, China's GDP and exports started to increase more exponentially alongside India, who also begins to increase in both GDP and exports. From 2001 to 2007, Germany experienced a huge increase in exports alongside a slight increase in GDP, resulting in Germany becoming the world's second largest exporter. Then in 2009, the effects of the recession is evident in all 3 major countries. However, not so much in India compared to China, who suffered a decrease in exports but still managed to experience an increase in their GDP. The United States, however, have a negative effect on both GDP and exports.
Throughout this video presentation, we have briefly explained and outlined the land area of countries, the populations of countries, the gross domestic product and purchasing power parity of the economies of countries, and the main exporters and importers of these countries. Finally, using our visualization, we were able to analyze the economies of countries around the world using the GDP, PPP, and exporters over a period.
Okay, now we would like to thank you all for listening. Bye for now.